Outriders is out since a couple of days and I had a look on the HDR capability or quality from this game and I found something very interesting. So let's talk about this. Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel Armor for All, and I have indeed very good news for you because Outriders is supporting HGiG and it looks awesome. So, before I show you how this game looks like on my LG CX, let's talk about how to calibrate HDR in the correct way on the Xbox Series or PlayStation 5, because there's a little bit of a difference, okay? So let's start with the Xbox Series, and in this case it is very important. When you change something in the internal calibration menu, you have to close the game or you restart the console, okay? But the difference between PlayStation 5 and Xbox is actually PlayStation 5 will tell you you have to close the game before you actually change something on the HDR calibration, and then you have to restart the game. So if you don't do this on the Xbox and you don't close the game, it will not take the new settings, okay? So keep this in mind, okay? We're pressing the big button and we're pressing this option menu or whatever, and we're going to quit game, and we're jumping straight into HDR game calibration. And this time it is very important that we actually using the mode what we like to play with, okay? So this is all standard settings and HGiG is already selected in my case. So if you like to play in dynamic tone mapping on, of course select dynamic tone mapping on or HGiG before you start calibrating, okay? So in my case I stick with HGiG because in this game it is just very fine or very nice, okay? So it is mandatory, it is very important that you set the right value here, because I can easily show you, and I hope my camera can catch this at the moment. Now you can see all the pattern, which is the absolute wrong setting, but we leave it like this at the moment. We're going complete down here, which is also complete wrong. Here also complete down, and now our HDR setting is done, but in the complete wrong way. And now we're jumping back into the game. So back in the game, and I'm very sure you can actually see what's going on the screen. This is supposed to be black, or you have a very nice contrast between the background and the stars, but this is just gray now because of our wrong setting from this black-white pattern, okay? Has nothing to do with the other maximum brightness peak pattern. This will affect this stuff because then you don't have the maximum peak brightness, but you can easily spot this is complete wrong. So that means one of very less games which actually is supporting the internal HDR calibration from the consoles. So we are back in the HDR calibration menu, and this time we're setting this in the correct way, which means we're going all the way back till we can't see any pattern. So I haven't tested it actually that if there's a difference between no pattern at all or maybe just barely visible, which is probably 1 or 2 clicks. I haven't tested this, so I'm always going complete the way down. Not 100,000% sure if this is really the correct way, but so far I haven't had any issue, okay? So we make sure we can't see any pattern for now. And here we actually make sure barely visible, and then we're going one further. So we do the same here, barely visible, and then 1 click more. And now we're done with the right settings. So just to show you how it looks on the PlayStation 5, the settings or the calibration menu. We're going to home, of course, we're going into our settings, screen and video, and no, this was wrong, adjust HDR. So, and the PlayStation 5 will ask you to close the game because otherwise it would happen exactly the same like on the Xbox. It will not take the new settings, okay? So we have to close the game, otherwise we can't jump into the app. And here it's exactly the same. I'm not even sure, to be honest, in which mode it is, because I'm doing so much testing all the time. Let's have a quick look. It's in HGiG, which again I would recommend in this game. And it's the same here, barely visible, and we're going 1 click more. The same here. Where is it? Probably very hard to see on the camera. So this is the right setting. And here the same all the way down. If you do it like this, that you can see the sun, you have exactly the same issue like on the Xbox. You have a very gray or very wrong gamma in the game, okay? So all the way down, adjust or confirm, and you're good to go. So here we are with the game, and this is one of my first game where I'm really struggling with the actually internal settings from the game. And when I'm talking about the internal settings, I'm just talking about the HDR brightness level. You can see right now it's set to 60. It is very hard to say which number is actually correct, because with all my testing what I have done, motion blur needs to be off, of course, but with all the testing what I've done so far, HGiG and brightness level 60 is actually very nice. Because when you go down a little bit like this, which is the standard settings 15, the picture is very dark, and you don't have any HDR effect, not at all, really not at all. Because usually what happened when you turn off and on, this goes brighter, and the background goes brighter. But in this case, with settings to 15, the only thing what is really minor, what is changing, is this one, very minor, and maybe this one a little bit, but nothing else, okay? So again, very hard to say actually what is the right settings, because 60 full settings, actually it sounds too much, it looks too much to me, you know what I mean? Not in case of how the picture looks like, but setting to the extreme end, you know what I mean, doesn't look right to me. But I have to say, it makes really a very nice picture. And now we have actually, I hope you can see it in the background, turning off and on. HGiG is making this a little bit brighter, making this a lot brighter now, and depending on how the clouds are, we can actually see HDR effects on this, I don't know, stripes here. And of course now we have here a little bit. So this game has at this very moment not very much to offer in terms of HDR, but it is very nice to look at it, to be very honest, because this is actually really very bright. And now with this setting, HGiG is more than enough bright. This is really great. And here with the fire as well. It's very hard to see for you on the screen, I'm very sure. But it will brighten up all this fire stuff here. Here as well, very hard to see because it's not that much, okay? But it is enough, or enough to have actually really a nice HDR effect. I will show you a scene later where you can actually see a little bit more from HDR, but I hope you understand now why it is very hard to recommend any brightness settings at the moment. And please keep in mind, we're just talking about HGiG, nothing else at the moment, because we have set up our Xbox with HGiG, okay? If we're now switching to dynamic tone mapping, it will make everything even brighter, but I have to say then you lose actually details already, because it's too bright, something is not correct anymore, because we have set up the Xbox with HGiG and not with dynamic tone mapping. So that's the problem. So that's why we can't switch around today, okay? In games where the internal settings has no impact at all in the game, we can do this, because there is, you know, you get my point, because they are just internal settings and we can change this as we like it. In this case, we can't. Okay, so here we are again, different location, and again, this game has not much to offer in terms of HDR so far. So I haven't played the complete game, of course, so maybe just 1 or 2 hours so far. It's very hard to say what is coming later, of course, but at this very moment, and it is really always about clouds and lights, you know what I mean? I mean, that's what HDR is about. I hope you can see it, that HGiG on and off makes really a big difference, and I'm very sure my camera can't really get this nice picture what you have with HGiG. It is really much better. And again, we can't switch, or we can switch to dynamic tone mapping, but it will not be accurate, okay? So we do the dynamic tone mapping in a second, because then we have to set it up in the Xbox menu. But for now, we leave it in HGiG, and also the brightness is still set to 60, because also what I like to show you, we have here very nice bright objects. And also what you can see here, this is getting brighter, and also have a look here. what happened with on and off. Come on, to get your, hey, get your, maybe here, maybe that's better. You can see this is really nice. It's showing much more details with HGiG, and as always, it is very minor. So during a real gameplay, you probably don't have time to look at this at all, but very nice fine details. And what happened if you actually change this back to the standard, which is 15? So we just leave motion blur on. So first of all, it is very, very dark, very, very dark. I really don't like to play like this. And the only thing what is changing at the moment is this one and a very tiny bit here, very tiny. You barely can't see it. So 15 and HGiG can't be the right settings, not at all, in my opinion. If 60 is the right settings, I doubt it also, because it's just too much, in my opinion, just too much. I had also a very good experience with 30, depends on the location and so on, because I still think it's a little bit too dark, but at least we're getting a little bit more out of the HDR effects. As you can see, hopefully, that this is now, yeah, much better. So, what I like to say here, maybe we can find another object. Where am I at anyway? Let's go down and find something else where we can look at it, okay? Okay, so different scene, and we're focusing on this lamp here because I like to show you something later when we set up HGiG in the wrong way in the menu. Right now, between on and off, HGiG on and off, you can see that you're not losing any details in this nice lamp. It's still the same texture, this nice little, I don't know how you can call this, you know, a little nice texture, and you're not losing any details. It's just getting much brighter. Not much brighter, but very nice brightness. So it's a really nice HDR effect. So let me set up HGiG in the wrong way and we have a look again on this lamp. So, and with wrong, I mean, we leave this on the darkest spot so that we can't see anything. But in this case, instead of going the way back, we're going the whole way up, okay? So we just wait a little bit because I can't see anything. We just make sure that we actually on the end. And here the same, we're just pressing and we wait a little bit. So now HGiG is completely set up in the wrong way. So we are back into the game, and unfortunately I'm very sure you can't see it on your screen because my camera just can't catch this. But there is no fine details anymore. It is a little bit brighter, I have to say, but there is no fine details, you know, no textures anymore. This is just one white, I don't know, thing. You know, and when you turn off, then I get my details back, but of course it's looking very, very bad. The same, of course, when you turn on dynamic tone mapping now, it is just missing all the nice details. So that means setting up HGiG on the internal calibration menu will destroy your HDR effect. It will make you the HDR effects a little bit brighter, but also you will really, really lose all the fine details. So make sure you set it up in the right way. So let's have a look on dynamic tone mapping and the difference and disadvantage in my opinion. So dynamic tone mapping is on this time. We make sure this is also complete down. But this one, of course, was complete wrong. We have to go down, 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 down. Here it is. And we make this also barely visible and one tick more. So disadvantage with dynamic tone mapping, as the name says, it is dynamic, which means it will dynamically change the brightness from the screen all the time, which I really, really don't like. That's why I try to use HGiG as often as I can. But of course, in some games like God of War, it is a terrible experience, to be very honest, because if games are not supporting HGiG, you need to be lucky that it's actually looking better. So that's my opinion, because I did a lot of testing and I know there's some people out there that are saying leave HGiG on the whole time, calibrated for HGiG, but in my opinion it is not the right way, because the games, the game must support HGiG to get the best out of it. So we are back with dynamic tone mapping, and I really have to say this is very, very worse. You know, this game works so perfect with HGiG. And again, I'm just looking at very small objects like this lamp. In dynamic tone mapping, and even with the brightness settings to 15, which is the standard setting, 15, I have no chance to see any details here in the lamp, not at all, because dynamic tone mapping is overbrighten those objects. That's the problem from dynamic tone mapping. And keep in mind, at the moment, it is not even brighter than HGiG. HGiG with setting 60 gives you a much better HDR experience with the lamp. And we're really just talking about minor things like lamps, yeah, I know, but also gives you a much brighter picture. Again, I'm not sure if 60 is the right way because it seems to be a little bit too much, but even with 30, so doubling the standard settings from 15 to 30 gives you already a brighter picture that dynamic tone mapping at this very moment, and also much better HDR effects. So you can see if a game supports, and by the way, there's still no update from my TV. So just before, anyway, different story, of course. You can see as soon a game is supporting HGiG, this is the way to go. I'm very sure you can't see it, but now with dynamic tone mapping off, I have the nice textures and the fine details from the lamp back, but of course picture is even darker. When I turn it back on, I barely can't see it. It's not visible. Maybe very, very minor, you know what I mean? So now it's visible because I'm standing differently. Because this bloody hut is over this. But here now it's completely gone. And with HGiG, even in the brightness settings with 60, I had so nice details, not just here on the whole screen, of course. Okay, so time for a conclusion and summary. The only way, in my opinion, to enjoy this game is HGiG when you play in HDR, and make sure you set it up in the correct way in your console. Doesn't matter if it's the Xbox or PlayStation 5. It is mandatory, otherwise you have a very bad experience, okay? And I like to show you this again, just to make sure on the Xbox Series X or S, make sure you close the game or you restart the Xbox when you do any change in the HDR menu, okay? The PlayStation 5 will ask you to close the game, okay? So HGiG is activated. We make sure this is on the lowest setting. We make sure it's barely visible. And then we have one tick more. The same on this window or setting. And we are good to go with HGiG, okay? If you like to use dynamic tone mapping, of course, set up dynamic tone mapping or change it to dynamic tone mapping and then do the calibration, okay? So also, keep in mind, HGiG brightness level 60, it looks very, very nice to me. But I haven't played the whole game, so it can be that in further or in later levels or later missions, we have complete different brightness settings from the game, and maybe 60 is way too much, okay, way too much. It seems too much. Set something, if you have a setting from 0 to, let's say, 100, and you set something to 100, it doesn't sound right, okay? So the same happened here. I can't believe that actually 60 is the right setting, but so far I had the best experience with this one, okay? So I haven't seen any issue with this, okay? So please put in the comments what is your experience with HGiG and the brightness setting. And yeah, I think that's it for this video. I hope you had fun. I hope it's not too long, but I'm really happy that actually one game since a very long time is supporting HGiG and the internal calibration menu, okay? And now enjoy Outriders. Thank you, and I see you next time. Bye.